I'm so excited to do the Appalachian Journey.
Good. Yes.
I was going to hate it at first, but now I actually want it.
All right. So here's another episode. 3 videos in less than 1 week. Been a busy week. Felt like a movie producer. But we made it to my home county, Floyd County, Virginia, for the 2025 version of the Appalachian Journey. Nino and I had trained all winter long, and he was ready as ever. And the challenge was honestly pretty substantial, but I knew that he could do it because of all the work he had put in. Follow along our adventure to see Nino reach his goal of completing the Appalachian Journey. The day was full of cheering and motivation for Nino, and I cannot express how much I appreciated it.
All right, just chill out. Let's let him get on up there. Trust me, we'll catch many.
Just let him go on up there. We'll catch many of them. That was the motto for the entire day. We didn't want to be in anybody's way, so we started the dead last. We were the last to leave, in respect to all the other riders who paid a lot of money to do this amazing event. Not knowing how Nino would do with hundreds of people around him, and not knowing if we would even finish the day. We didn't want to burden anybody else on their journey. However, I know Nino well enough to know that all the little carrots in front of him were just more motivation as the day went on. After we watched around 300 people pass us by at the start of the race, we went down the gravel driveway and on to Shooting Creek Road, a road I was familiar with as a child growing up. We made a right turn to our first section of gravel. For a pretty substantial distance, it went uphill. And one by one, we continued to pass people. At that point right there, when I could tell Nino was asking about the most random things in the world with absolutely no labored breathing, I knew that we were going to be in for a good day. I must say that every rider we passed was extremely supportive, and at times would ask questions about how long Nino had been riding, how old he was, and were we actually trying to do the 70 miles. I could see the looks on many of their faces. Many of them, if they were being honest, probably never thought in a million years that he could finish this ride. But Nino would say, "Good luck, see you at the finish line." He was respectful and kind to every single person along the route. Many a times there would be people on the side of the road. Nino does not know anything about fixing a bike, but he would ask them if they were okay and they needed anything. My heart was warm with how much love and kindness that he showed every single person. Equally, every single person that was on this route with us was so supportive and gave such encouraging words to Nino, and it motivated him through the entire ride. If you've ever thought about doing the Appalachian Journey, but you've been on the fence, maybe because of the distance you have to travel, or that it is fairly expensive, I'm telling you now, it is absolutely worth it. I'd always been hesitant to do it because I literally grew up in the county and I was able to ride those roads for free. But Mr. and Mrs. Gordon Wadsworth and Emily Harefield put on an absolute amazing ride. Honestly, growing up in that area, I cannot believe that something that professionally run and that big in the world of cycling is literally miles away from where I grew up as a child. Kudos to Gordon. It's an amazing event. I like absolute maximum level, highly encourage you to do this event. We chose the 70 mile. They have smaller, shorter distances and longer distances, which Nino and I one day probably will do. But for now, 70 miles was more than enough Trust me, it's an absolute amazing ride, beautiful scenery, incredible roads, and one heck of a challenge, regardless of your skill level. As they say when you get started, it never gets easier, you only get faster. One of my favorite parts of the entire day was at this point right here in the video. Nino's grandfather died before he was born. His name was Ed Weeks. Ed, much like Nino, had one of those infectious personalities. Sadly, Nino never got to meet his grandfather, but we see characteristics of Ed in Nino. This particular spot right here is where Ed built a cabin about 10, 15 years ago. What better place than to pull in and introduce Nino to the new owners and have our first break in memory of his grandfather at the driveway of the cabin that he built. We talked about how cool Ed was and how much Ed would have loved to spend time with Nino. After our first jailbreak at about mile 15, we took off to make it to the next rest area at mile marker 28 or 29. Nino continued to ride great, traveling over some pretty stout hills, loose gravel, squishy ground from the night's previous rains, and gradient that reached in the mid-teens at times on short, steep pitches. Nino never hesitated. He did his typical grunt as he continued to climb, but when he got to the top, he'd be smiling, ready for the next hill. We continued on through the county, traversing many paved tar and gravel roads, occasionally a smooth asphalt surface, which oddly enough always seemed to go downhill. And then we'd get back on a gravel surface that oddly enough seemed to always go uphill. But somehow or another, the puzzle was getting put together piece by piece, and it was full of memorable sections of road, sometimes difficult times. Nino and I chose to take road bikes. Honestly, I thought it was going to not necessarily be that big of a deal, but what I come to find out is that all the downhills were on pavement and all the uphills seemed to be on gravel. So we kind of were at a disadvantage.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich coming up.
Tread on the tires. And but lesson learned. We'll know for next year that there's not much of a penalty for having the wider, knobbier tires that a gravel bike offers. But regardless, even on a road bike, the only two people I saw the entire day on road bikes, we were still able to navigate all the terrain and make it through with absolutely no problems. Real quick, these aid stations were top notch. Amazing food, great drinks, people with encouraging words.
Met you last weekend.
Yeah, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Let's get a peanut butter and jelly, Nino.
How are you doing, little man? Feeling strong? You look great.
Here you go. Yeah, we'll just get some more. Yeah. He's got little cups right there. You probably can knock some out. Hey.
Turn it towards you. Turn the white thing towards you. So how far are you riding today?
70.
Nice.
Wow.
That reaction that you saw from the people working the aid station was the same reaction that we saw from every single person that we met the entire day. Nino just gets to the point where he's used to it, and he really doesn't even think about it anymore. He doesn't realize that what he does is an exceptional talent. Many would maybe even say prodigy. Who knows if Nino will always want to be a cyclist, but right now he has ambitions to become the next Tadej Pogačar or Matthew Van Der Poel. And when you got a kid that determined, even at 8 years old, can overcome one of the hardest rides anywhere around and make it look easy, kind of makes you wonder what will we end up being. At this particular section of the video is when the fakers are exposed. I don't know how else to say it. This is where this ride was a lot harder than I remembered it being. I have been on these roads. I have driven these roads, but driving them just is not the same as riding them. And riding them on road tires is probably not the same as riding them with tread. We proceeded through a nice meander country road and then went up some road that had something to do with hope or joy. I can't remember the exact name, but it was hope or joy. As we proceeded up that road, it hit me why this route was actually hard. For the next 7 miles and around 1,400 feet of elevation gain on some of the steepest pitches that I have ridden my road bike on off-road, we continued to climb and climb and climb. And we even got on one particular point that it literally was not possible for us to climb on slick tires. We briefly had to push. No hesitation. A few grunts. 50 yards later, we were back on, riding again. And through this section, we passed countless people who were fighting off cramps, suffering from the incredible terrain challenges. And Nino continued to wish them luck and see him at the finish line. Right here, we passed his mom, Bethany, who was our mobile aid just in case we needed it. Fortunately, we didn't need much except exchanging some of our pre-mixed bottles. But she was always around the turns every 5, 10, 15 miles ahead. It was refreshing for Nino to see the support from his mom. We continued on till about mile marker 48, give or take, to rest area 3. We stopped at rest area 3 and we spent quite a bit of time. Considering it was a race, maybe we spent more times than we probably should have at the rest areas. But it was very important for me, for Nino to have a good time. I wanted him to look forward to doing an event like this in the future. I wanted him to talk to the volunteers, talk to the fellow riders, share war stories. That was accomplished. He had a blast, and I truly believe he looks forward to doing it again. After this stop at the rest area 3, we proceeded to get on the Blue Ridge Parkway near Mabry Mill, and we started a ride northbound towards the Rocky Knob. This particular spot was the site of the old Floyd Fest, a place where I spent many a summers working. I was able to show Nino, and he was asking why they took it down, and had to explain in the most easiest terms for an 8-year-old to understand is that people move on in life. They buy properties, build businesses, and sometimes you have to change location. He didn't really understand why they took the stage down. In some regards, I kind of agree with him. Sure does seem like a waste of a great site for future type of events. But regardless, it's gone now, but there's a lot of memories that I have from that particular spot.
Thank y'all for the last time.
Up and over Rocky Knob, down the parkway towards Tuggles Gap. We proceeded down northbound on the Blue Ridge Parkway, cutting off for a few gravel roads, before eventually we turned on Thomas Farm Road, the road where I grew up. And we were able to ride through, and I was able to show Nino the house where I grew up for many years as a child. The entire day was full of stories such as this, and it was a great time to kind of explain how Bethany and I grew up in the same county we were riding in. Honestly, when it comes to a bike, it's the most time we'd ever spent in that county together with Nino, but we had a great time throughout the entire ride. It was about this point when Nino looked down at his computer and saw that he had set a new high score. 63 was his previous high score, and we were sitting in the mid-60s. He said, "Dad, I set a new high score, and I'm not even tired yet." That's when I knew I was dealing with someone much stronger than anyone realizes. We turned right into Floyd Family Campground, up the gravel road, heading toward the finish line. Every person we passed yelled, cheered, gave praise to Nino. When we had the finish line in sight, I looked at Nino and I asked him, "What are you made of? Let's sprint to the end."
Get in front.
And he and I raced
Get in front.
as fast as we could,
Sprint.
all the way to the finish line.
Let's see what you got.
That's exactly how Nino would want to finish the day.
Come on.
As we crossed the finish line,
Come on.
I couldn't wait to get off the bike. Not to get off the bike, but to get off the bike and give him a big fat hug. He deserved it. Truly, to this day, I could not be any prouder when it comes to him riding his bike
awesome,
and
man.
the accomplishment that he was
You did
able to do.
awesome.
70
very
miles
proud
for
of
an
you.
8-year-old on the flattest trail in the world is something. 70 miles of the Appalachian Journey, words can't describe.
Well, it's over.
What do you think? Tell me. Hardest ride ever?
Yeah, probably.
All right.
The hardest part was all of it. No part was easy.
Yeah. Coming down that nice pavement at the top of the parkway wasn't bad though, because we went downhill for like 3 miles. That was pretty easy.
Yeah, 3 miles goes fast when you're going downhill.
You're right. You're right.
Well, we ended up 18th out of 25 in the elite men. We beat a lot of teams. The goal was to not be last. We definitely accomplished that. Please like and subscribe. And if you think this video was cool, share it to your friends. Maybe you'll motivate somebody, whether they're 8 or 80. Until next time, we'll see you on the trails.